Well, you know what? I'm gonna facilitate your not watching the video by having the no, except you gotta hear my voice. So since I got the fan going and the mic doesn't pick up very good, does not pick up very well. Since the mic don't pick up real good, and I got a fan going, I'm gonna go ahead and go through the standard operating procedure at the top of telling you don't need to look at my mug. But I might be too lazy to keep the cards on the webcam. I might. Let's see. Um, in case I get super lazy, since we've gone 1 minute and 12 seconds into this video, I'm very tired, and I decide to send it. Mr. President, dude, I want to talk about other stuff, but you seem to go for that president thing. But anyway, coach proposed that I'm talking to Ben Wade. It's 2015 08 13. August 13th, 2015. I'm in Rome at 6:01 a.m. Oh, and I might not send this for numerology reasons until Coach, if you're West Coast, for numerology reason, I might not want to send this until it's the 14th for you, because there's the whole 2015, 08, 14 that'll be. No, excuse me, until it's the 13th for you, because it's the 12th right now, and on the West Coast. And for those that might hear this in the future, I might be sending this video to Coach, aka Ben Wade, aka Survivor Coach, Dragon Slayer, and whatever he wishes to call himself. Coach on Survivor, a coach from Survivor, and Coach. We're now almost 3 minutes into this, so let me get some premises out of the way. As I said, I'm tired. I've been happy busy since I got your last two emails. Busy, happy busy. Now, I'm going to be, rhymes with busy, I'm going to be busy for the next 2 or 3 days. And getting those emails from you has had my head spinning. I mean, think about what you wrote. I loved everything that you wrote, but I have to go to this inbox thing. Subject, coach for president, maybe. And here's what you wrote. It says you're 14 hours ago, at 3:58 p.m. I think that would have been my time. P.S. Model M Comic Con announcement for president. One for all and all for one. I'm down. There's a PPS too, etc., etc. But that's why you're at the center of the cards. Now, I didn't have. I told you that I had a lot of caveats about that idea, but it's so fucking cool, and it's making me busy. But because I will be busy for the next 2 or 3 days, as I was walking back home, I thought, am I gonna send them an email with some ideas? Am I gonna do a video? Am I gonna do both? I'm gonna write a new chapter of Model End. So I'm gonna go stream of consciousness, and I thought that if you don't hear this video, that I'd eventually, it might even be better because I'd eventually, leaving aside what I was gonna say about don't even fucking watch the image. I keep telling people it's about the audio, although there's something to be said about the video too, sometimes in a strange way. But if you don't listen to this audio at all, the ideas, I might be able to write them down in the future, the ones that I actually believe in more, preferably the ones that I believe in most, and that it spare you the time of listening to this. But so it's your call. But two things. One is I'm still busy with the fact, in a good and a bad way to some extent, that your PS was about the president thing, because I'd rather focus on uh, other things. And of course, the top priority is harmony with good, and that's the whole point. That whatever you do as president, whether it's just in the narrative, in the model and cards narrative, and or I should say, you know, on real Earth, I know that you'd want to optimize and maximize good for yourself, for your loved ones, and for all for one and one for all. So ultimately, it's one of the reasons that I put you at the center of the cards. And you could, one could argue, I could argue that that's all we need. But it could be worthwhile to throw some ideas out there, whether they have to do with the fictional and or real role of you as president, or with other stuff. And the plan is for me is that when I'm 80 years old and you're whatever 73 or thereabouts, and we're together, we're chilling and smoking a joint, you're drinking a brew or looking at whatever, or you're smoking a joint, and but it's like we're chilling. And if we were to look at these like old movies, or think about them, we do, yeah, we did good, whether we laugh at ourselves and say, oh, can you believe we're talking about running for president? Or we're saying, and or oh, wasn't it a much better idea that we went with the blah blah blah, and so on and so forth. And we might be poor or rich, famous or unknown, but we'd be happy about what we've done. But dude, email Ray, coach for president maybe, from Benjamin Wade to me. P.S. Model and Comic Con announcement for president. One for all and all for one. I'm down. Coach. There's this guy on your Twitter right now that my eyes were on the picture that was, it says here, from 13 hours ago, when Survivor Quotes, where you retweeted Survivor Quotes. It says you sure did. We love this one too. Hashtag epic shots. And there's the profile of you walking on the top of a desert dune. You're almost smack in the middle of the picture. Your height is about. It's a great picture. It's a great picture. You're like less than half of the height um, of the picture. It's daytime. It's got greenery and some sand in the background, and it's unmistakably Coach even from the distance. What's your sponsor on your left knee? See if we could zoom that. Would it say Coke or Pepsi? Or the karmabank.com with dashes between the words. And your stick, I think you had a picture, a tweet about your stick and carving your own destiny. Oh, I see a picture of your lovely wife. I think it is your lovely wife. She looks different than other pictures. But there's this tweet above it from Rob Fact Checker. And it says, my best retweet this week came from the real Coach. And it says, big thanks. And that's how I feel. It's like my best fucking email. It's, believe it or not, I'm actually, in a way, I'm happier that she wrote me than I would have been if Tyler would have shown up. I don't know if you understand the dynamics between me and Tyler are a little complicated. She officially hasn't exactly contacted me in 4 years, but then again, there's a couple of years where I said, dude, don't even fucking think about contacting me. Other times when it's like I wish that she would have, but in my mind, though it might not happen, I've visualized the day that Tyra shows up, or I run into her, or she writes me, or whatever, and thousands of times may or may not happen. But I hadn't visualized nearly as much that coach would write me. And so it's more of a pleasant surprise. I was actually thinking, with all the respect to time, it's like, God, am I even happier that I'm coming home to my email from coach, my emails from coach? So I can relate to the guy that, Rob's fact checker says my best retweets or RTs, whatever this week came from the real coach. But the question is, would he endorse you for president? And would you endorse him for president? Would you endorse, because I'd endorse, I mean, against the presidency, and I think, coach, that you would agree. Like I said, I have other subjects that I want to talk about that are all connected to harmony. I would hope that you would agree, although I look forward to some extent to our disagreements too, and what we can learn from that. But Coach, I would hope that you would agree that if the people wanted to have you as a leader, that you would do that, but you would uh, manifest explicitly that you hope and pray and want to uh, act and behave towards a world where people do not need leaders. But if and that we would suspect that an evolved species would not be one that needs leaders. We could still have leaders that we enjoy having, and we could even take turns at leading and so on and so forth. But So if you've got 13,000 followers, Tyra Banks has got 13 million followers. But if you got 13,000 followers, how many of them would you feel that you'd want them to be leaders if we transition from towards an evolution where we do not need leaders, do not even need government? That's a huge issue for me because, well, you're talking about meeting the email, so I'm going to keep it short. But for example, just like you can't legalize drugs without understanding that are impact the economy of illegal drug pushers, which I know a lot of them, and I respect most of them. The ones that I don't respect for reasons other than the fact that they're drug pushers, and you have to deal with the economic and social and psychological and cosmic consequences of that. So if we evolve to a world, as in my top model, in worlds where there is no government, or government is like in a you know in an area where people that like government can have that, um, not only would there be a transition where it'd be too traumatic to go from night and day. But what would be the role of politicians? Just like you have to be aware of, geez, what's going to happen if we take these jobs by making drugs legal, what's going to happen to the pushers? Which is an ugly word, and I like Nina Simone, but she wrote a song called "I Hate the Pusher," and it's like she should meet my duds, no pun intended. But and this transition towards what I believe is an ideal society, which needs no government and needs no leaders, unless it's for fun or for some, but there's no need for it. There could be a choice for that, but it wouldn't be a need for that. What would you do with the politicians? Because if you take drugs away, what do you do with the people that make a living with drugs? And it's not just the pushers; it's the whole economy around it. Well, if you take away government, what do you do with the people that are calling to be a politician? And what I would suggest is that God, I want to stop talking about other subjects, but your last email was about the presidency. It wasn't the last thing that you said, but model and but I think it's applied and or real Earth too. So we don't want to traumatize anybody, because change is good if it's not traumatic. Although there's times and places for traumatic change. Ideally, it's when you want that, but um, uh, it's all about consent. So the politicians could the transition would be to where, instead of politicians telling us vote for this guy or vote for that guy, I'm not the first one to suggest something like this. So if you think, oh, that's such a great idea, I do not claim to be the first one. I've certainly been saying this for years, and I didn't hear too many people talking about it, but I'm not the first one to say something like this. But instead of saying vote for this guy or vote for that guy, because ultimately it comes down to does the money go towards education or military? Because that's what politicians do, essentially. They take our money. In future modelings, there would be no taxes, but in a transition world, whether it's for all of your taxes or a part of your taxes, whether it's for the whole country as an experiment, if you want the money if you want 100% of the money to go towards transportation, and you don't give a fuck about education or military, then you have an option on your electronic and or paper form to say, you know, I want 100% of my taxes. Say that your taxes are at 30%. I want I want all my taxes or whatever portion that's allocated for this transition or experiment or whatever. I want all of my. I say this on pitch it on YouTube.com with dashes within the words. Although that's not been updated, I might say better or not better here or there. But so you say, okay, I want all my money to go towards the military, or I want the 33.2% to go to the military, 0. Whatever percent, and you can make it an optional thing, so that if you'd rather just let the politicians decide, you don't have to do that. But if you want to say where your money goes, because that's taxes, and I used to be totally left wing, and then I took a totally different look, and I believe in freedom. And the left wing, which historically almost became in line with what became the moral majority a few decades ago, if I remember what somebody told me or what I read. But so we've got this overlap where the left wing wants it to be free in terms of socially, but they don't want you to be free in terms of economically. They want mom and dad, like government, to tell you what to do. Okay, not in the bedroom. The left wing wants the government out of the bedroom, but they want government in business. The right wing, the ideal capitalism doesn't want government anywhere. And it's like, so we got PayPal, we can decide what we want to do with the money. But anyway, but they've associated themselves, which could have gone the other way, with what was called the moral majority, which was a conservative. So you got people that don't want you to be free to have gay marriage, for example. They're on the right wing, and the left wing people are saying, "Oh, we want to be free to have gay marriage," but they don't want us to be free to do business without government interfering. Whereas the right wing, on the one hand, says we don't want you to be free to have gay marriage, but on the other hand, they say we want to be free to do business without government getting in. And instead of having, oh, but what about if government didn't check for things, then you would pollute the rivers and so on and so forth. I suspect that if an organization like Transfer or Corporate Watch, or maybe even better than that, they could have put their stamp of approval on your business deal without having to go through government. So as a consumer, I would rather put my money. I think that alas, I think that if government were out of business, those things that some people think, oh, you need government to make sure that the thing's fair. I would rather have the fair stamp made by an organization, and you could have a choice of organizations, just like you can choose phone companies. You could say, okay, our business thing is going to be certified by XYZ.com, and XYZ.com usually is strong on environment or weak on environment, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't need the government for that. So it's like I think we all want freedom. Everybody's afraid of everybody else, and so they delegate to mom and dad, which is government. As I keep saying, a society that needs government is like a child that needs parents. I think it's absurd. But we do live in a world where it's shocking to say things such as I do, and freedom and so on and so forth. Plus, I'm all for transparency, following where the money goes, reality, changes in economy. I mean, if you think about it, if the median income in the world is 30,000 a year or something like that, but the gross domestic product of the world is $80,000 billion, and you've got people that are making $50 a year. If I keep saying, let's just start a little bit. 1% of the world would. I've covered this. If you go to bellatop.com, BELLATOP.com, food for everyone, or just go to modelandcards.com and look at the food for everyone thing. But 1% of the world's GDP would see to it that every poor person would have $500 a month, and you can eat plenty of rice and beans, etc., for 500 a month. And the whole point is that you actually then we wean away from that. We could even get into controversy of there's you can actually, the world is hungry. We should feed it. It's not they are hungry. We as a human species are hungry. It costs 1% of the world's GDP to feed people. But for the matter, if you wanted to have 20 billion people, 2 billion people. And no, I'm against population growth. That's why I say maybe we should have, food with the pill, and that'd be a male pill too, and that'd not just be for the poor people in Africa. Excuse the cliche that we don't want them to keep making 12 hungry babies. This could be something that you buy at Whole Foods because you want it. You want the food with the pill. Um, uh, there's so many. I mean, I have modeling worlds that go on forever, but the politicians. Well, as long as I'm on that subject, as long as I'm on that subject, God, this whole thing about the presidency, it's like, but I want to get all this shit out, and it's taking so fucking long to write it. But like I said, maybe I will, and it'll make it a lot easier. Maybe I'll drop all of these ideas, and you'll come up with such better ideas. I'd want to. You're one of the top people that I'd want to bounce my ideas off of, and you could tell me, "Took, no, I think that's a bad idea," and I hear, I'm a good listener, I listen to everybody. I feel that about Donald Trump, by the way, because I was starting this conversation. I seem like I'm all over the place. Bern Hogarth used to talk like this too, but I certainly, much as I don't want politicians, I would. I would think that Donald Trump would be a great transition, but I'd like to find out, even though I disagree with some things. One of the reasons that is that I watched his videos. I used to fucking think he was an idiot, and then I watched and I thought, no, this is a good guy. And one of the things about Donald Trump is that he listens. Okay. Oh, my mom might be calling me on Skype, but on Skype. But so, how would you feel about Donald? We could go into a presidential race where instead of saying, "Oh, he's an asshole," you might say, "Well, even Russell Hantz, I have some things that I agree with." Or you might say, "I'd be very comfortable surrounding myself with people like Donald Trump or Rob's fact checker or Rob Mariano, if that's the same guy, or your baker or your masseuse." The pressure of politics and decision making should be relieved, because if you're going to be a leader, you should have your health in mind first and foremost. So you would want to surround yourself with people that it's like they tell you you can rest. Whether it's Rob that's the president and you're one of his consultants, and you tell him, "Rob, you can rest because I'll take care of that." Or you're the president and Ivanka Trump is your consultant, and she says, "President, coach, you can rest, I'll take care of this. So I did want to say something about the economy before I get back to the role that politicians would have, which I've already stated, basically just concluded. But in terms of like money, say that you want these people that are only making 500 a year in the world right now, even though we got 80, the GDP in 2013 was 80,000 billion, not million. There's 1,000 million and a billion. So the GDP, the money of the world in 2013 was 80,000 billion. The median income, I think, was something like 30 grand. Now, we all know that the top 1% has so much money that if they were to give half of it away, everybody would have twice as much. But I think it's more likely, like if you were to take, I think I did the math, if you were to take, leaving aside that 1% of the world's GDP would see to it that everybody that is hungry now would have enough to eat, and then they could be a productive part of society. Okay, not to mention the topchoicesystem.com. If you click to where you can make some cash, dude, that's a fucking trip. But um, uh, oh yeah, this audio could actually. But I got links, so you don't need to listen to the audio. Yeah, find your way through. Fuck the audio. Yeah, fuck whatever. But it might help. Whatever. There's whatever. Audio or no audio, links or no links. But I think it was doing the math where if we wanted to make sure that those people that are poor, leaving aside hungry, but they'd like to make 10,000 a year, working people, that the majority would agree, yeah, they're working people, and you'd like to make sure that they get at least 10,000 a year. Okay, I figured out if we were going to do that for 2 billion people, if you wanted to make sure, ideally stop population growth, but if you wanted to make sure that, let's say we got 2 billion people that are not making 10,000 a year, and they're working people, If we got working people, they gotta eat in order to work. But if they're working people, and we just have to make sure that companies pay them. Again, you could have that stamp of approval, transfer or whatever. Pete's Coffee, PET, transfer. When I was there, the guy hated Pete's Coffee. I was like, no, you should embrace Pete's Coffee. So I know I'm talking about people that were rivals, but people talk about fair trade. Shomamani Tatonka Wachi. If you watch the Western movie with Kevin Costner, Good Trade, I think he's made more than one. He's not a model in cards yet, but coach, you are. And I was thinking something like if you wanted to provide 2 billion working people with, and this hypothesis, with 10,000 a year, that would amount to 0.0, that's 0.025% of the world's GDP. Now, maybe we couldn't squeeze that out of the rich or the middle class, but those numbers are there. Going back to what role politicians have if we're in a world without leaders, well, the transition and would be that instead of saying vote for this guy, they'd say spend your money this way on your tax form, and you could have, Senator McCain that says you should put this much on the military, and you could have Hillary Clinton says you should have that much in education. Vote with your PayPal or your little thing as an option. I keep stressing option. And then ideally, if we get to a stage where there is no government and the majority of model land and or the real earth and God and or God is the cosmos starts to feel better, okay. And my theory, it's beyond the hypothesis, it's a theory, but you could take it hypothetically or as insane science fiction. But even without government, Hillary Clinton could be saying, even though everything would be, free business, she could say, put this much money in these schools with your PayPal or PayPal competitor. Even in a society in which there are no taxes and there is no government, if Hillary Clinton is inclined to, or Ross Perot or Rob's fact checker or Jeff Probst, and maybe Jeff Probst's wife or children or best friend would disagree with Jeff Probst, What would Belen Rodriguez say? Where would you put your money? Social media, the role of this. I had this thing about the super veto long ago in my earlier model and drafts about, you got a figurehead that's called the super veto, which is by popular choice, and it changes with popular choice, and they would have power to veto the president's veto or power to veto the bills, and it would be side by side with the presidency. There's so much science fiction that you could do for real. But the transition of the politicians, if they have a calling to try to get the people to trust them to say, you should do what I say, then since it comes down to money, I mean, obviously politics is about image. But ultimately, from a material perspective, I invent board games. So, my board game was about, you can play it for the images or you can play it for the points. The aspect, ultimately, government and law enforcement could be attributed to psychological issues. It's all probably morphogenic fields to some extent, or something that affect, and it's all God's will. And if you're an atheist, bear in mind that I don't think of God as something outside of us. You could even approach the phrase, it's all God's will, as, it's all part of the Big Bang equations, although if you look up Thunderbolt's project or you do some research, you understand that neither science nor religion have got it right. So when I speak about God and stuff like that, it might help if you go to modellandcards.com, click on more, and then get into the shaman stuff. And the shaman stuff, and so on and so forth. I'm thinking of adding a link to Coach, but we got to talk about that. And also we need to decide if and when we're going to start talking publicly, whether or not we want to make a big announcement or gradually start talking about it on Twitter or something in between. And that's very important, Coach. that we talk about that. I'm not telling you specifically don't start talking about me on Twitter. In fact, I think I wrote you an email that where I was laughing. It's like, just Twitter me, you know. But there's a side of me. It's like there's no hurry, you know. But because we started talking about this political stuff, what would you do with politicians in a transition towards where social media has more influence than politicians? Well, the politicians, if they have that calling, they could tell you where to put your money. Of course, I don't put your money where your mouth is.com with dashes between the words. But um, and I was talking about Rob's fact, fact, FACT checker that says my best RTs this week, which I think is retweets this week, came from the real coach. So this ties into what I was saying about we want to gradually start sharing our conversation with the world and start saying, you know, something like you could simply do a tweet where you say, I'm considering running for president, period. Not kidding. Or I'm serious, period. Modelandcards.com, period. Um, how do you all feel about it? Question mark. And I'd also be very happy if, you know, again, your Baker was president, or Rob Spec Checker, or any one of your 12.9 thousand followers were president. Or you could say, I wouldn't be happy with Russell Hantz as president. Or you could say, despite what you think, I think it would be good to have Russell Hantz as advisor. Do you see what I'm saying? So that could be a gradual thing where we would start a conversation, and that could go nowhere. It could be ridiculed. It could go viral. It could be something that happens years later, whatever. Or, like I said, you could say, dude, I'm going to talk to a Nintendo. We're going to talk about the video game, and we're going to make an announcement at Comic Con. We're going to keep it hush until we do. We're going to do a press conference and make a big announcement. Or you could even say, on this specific numerology date, I'm going to make a big announcement. Or I'm thinking pretty soon I'm going to make a big announcement. I mean, we could go anywhere we want. Because the point is that Ben, coach, you're a real person. I put you in modeling. I put a lot of oh my God, I just looked at my video. I was looking at your picture and the thank you. You look a lot better than I. Let's look at Tyre on modelandcards.com. But I can't believe. No, Tyre looks good. But scary. I was switching tabs. I was looking at your Twitter, and then I clicked on the YouTube tab, and I'm like, oh my God. No, sometimes I look really good. Sometimes I look really good. I'm not going to be false modest. Oh, by the way, I'm wearing 20 Den. Yeah, that's black 20 Den. It's something I've done videos about, so for my peeps that have give me a shout out. It's like, oh, how could you do a video like that and not mention that? But anyway, no, I'm not gonna get up. I think I did some videos where I did something like that because it's like, dude, I've seen so many videos of so many people doing so many things that I'd be ashamed not to do. So I think I did a couple of nude shots somewhere or stuff like that. You know, just so if somebody comes up and say, you've never done that, it's like, no, okay, I did a little bit, but I got better shit to do. All right. So there's intimacy. It's different from privacy. I don't give it. The NSA is probably. I wish. I keep telling them, follow me, sponsor me, but they haven't sent me my fucking camera yet. You know. But so you and I are writing a story together, and you're real and I'm real. And I was telling my brother, who hasn't gotten back to me, but something to the effect of, the merging, or my friends, with the merging of fiction with reality. And I thought that, the day might come when took the character in my fiction merges with took in reality, and you're that person because you're on the other side of the moat. If I call, back 30 years ago when I called Umberto Eco's office and I said, my name is Professor Gaudiano, I'm going to do this thing at the Art Center College of Design, I'm organizing a major thing, and, I'd love to, I got a super project in mind that involves the Art Center College of Design, and I'm going to do this lecture, and it's going to be TV, and I got a mega project, and I'd love to involve. I'd love to find out if Umberto Eco would do us the honor or something like that, if he'd be interested. And she's like, I mean, she was like ecstatic. I don't know if you understand who Umberto Eco is at the time, and he was like, and she's like, oh my God, he's traveling around, but oh my God, it's so lovely, because I described what I wanted to do, I think, sort of, but it's like, whoa, it's like, before I was able to say that, I never took that opportunity in the end, but before I was able to say that, people wouldn't take my calls. It's like if you watch Shark Tank, if when this guy tried to call Marvel Comics, they wouldn't take his call. When Kevin O'Leary or Fubu called Marvel Comics, oh yeah, we like it. It's the same idea, same person, but who opens the door for you? So we might have had a misunderstanding. You might have thought, even though I tried to be clear about it, I realized that maybe there were some things that were obvious to me that were not to you. So I apologize. Tarmac is not talking to me. I'm not in a position where I can call Comic Con and say, can you do a special event? And they might laugh in your face, unless, of course, maybe you get Nintendo on board. Or Rob the fact checker. Or, well, I don't know, Rob Mariano probably, if that's the same one. But you see what I'm saying? So the way I look at it is, and I thought that I said that to you, but then I realized maybe that wasn't clear. You're the one that's in a position to talk to 13,000 followers. They're not 13 million followers, but they're 13,000 followers. You may not be on the top 25 favorite players on Survivor, which I think is ridiculous. As I've said, it's like Deep Purple not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's a star, okay? Because everybody remembers Coach. You could call a press conference, you could call Comic Con, you could call Nintendo, well, Nintendo America, and say, yeah, I'm Coach from Survivor. I got a great project for a new reality show, or I got, or whatever. I got a. They listen. They might laugh later. I don't think that'll be the first time you've experienced that, but they might not laugh, and the point is they listen. They're not going to listen to me. 20 years ago, they would have. 20 years ago, I kind of quote unquote walked the earth. Not exactly, but it was a temp and so on and so forth. And did all sorts of shit. Left a professional career opportunity and a budding career that was to die for. Now, I can't get 5 people to watch my videos. If it says 75 views, probably 20 of those are mine from different computers, or when the YouTube doesn't get that it's me. And for some reason, maybe I got 50 views, but but you can open doors. Maybe you're gonna tell me, Took, no, you don't understand. They don't open doors for me as much as I do. But if you want to talk to Jeff Probst, you can talk to Jeff Probst. And if you call Donald Trump and ask Donald Trump, who from reality TV shows he would be happy to see in the White House or collaborating, and you would tell him how you feel about him or something like that. So actually, Donald Trump could make the announcement for us. That's another thing that I was thinking about. If I call Donald Trump, I've written, documented several things, but they're not going to get, my message is not going to get through, or if it did, it's possible that it did, and he's watching or paying attention a little bit. Not very likely, but possible, because I documented some pretty interesting stuff that I sent to Donald Trump. But the point is that they're not going to. It's not like Survivor Coach saying, "Hey, you know." So, because the reality, social media and reality TV together are creating a platform. I'm very happy that Donald Trump, just like I'm very happy that it was you, not necessarily Tyra, it was you that actually, you, the guy at the center of the card, the one that Galactus confides in, that actually, the real person that has been writing me what you've been writing me, and I love what you're writing me. Just like I'm happy that it was you that sent me that email, and because of the shaman thing and your connection with divinity and your intentions were good. Not that Donald Trump doesn't have a connection with divinity, but he doesn't go around saying he's a shaman or a minister or something like that. You do. I appreciate that, and I hope, like I said, the Big Bang and religion can understand that there's a mystery at the end, and that they will agree with what I've been saying. I'm repeating this not for you, but for the public, that if it's all one organism, it wants to be well, and it cannot be well if unless all the cells in the organism, to use that analogy, are well. So either we have intention or we not have intention. I'm so happy that you wrote me, because I can discuss intentions with you, I can discuss mysticism, and I can shoot the breeze, and I realize we can also fuck around and say your mama's so fucking ugly that whatever. I love that. And the alpha thing, that's so true. All these alpha males running around, but you're the alpha or of the alphas. A lot of people don't understand that. I do. Uh, but I'm very happy that Trump, speaking of alphas, but in a way, no disrespect to Trump, but in a way, and Trump, think of the word Trump, and I do tarot cards, Trump. But in a way, I mean, your coach. But anyway, there's a lot of people that I really appreciate that I've gotten to know about from reality shows. And now we're at a time where you could have a conversation with Donald Trump and saying, okay, who, what, where, when. But I personally am very happy that of all the people from reality shows, I mean, I would have been happy with Parvati running for president. I would have been happy with a lot of people running for president, from people that have made their ways into the living rooms and the illegal downloads, because it's a fucking, you live abroad and you want to watch the thing, and it's like this pirates thing. We're going to have this quote unquote pirates thing. We're going to have to talk about it, because when Steve Jobs decided the price point for a song was $1, he created huge, drastic, and bad consequences, because they can be downloaded. The cost of a downloaded song is not $1; it's 0 point something cents. And they created a market that created what they call piracy. But the point is, these people from reality shows and social media made it into our living rooms. Hence, Donald Trump. I am so happy that he is the one that's in the headlines running for president. There might be other people from reality shows, but on the headlines, it's Donald Trump. And the polls are great because he made it into our living room or our illegal downloads. Hello, Mantre Zero on YouTube. Thank you for all the Donald Trump episodes. He owns nothing. That's a reference. That's a quote. I'm so happy that Donald Trump, I think he's an ideal transition to the world that we're going to, whether or not he does become president. And that's a platform for us to acknowledge that, appreciate him for it, and say, where are we going with social media? Who would we want that we've watched on Big Brother, that we've watched on Top Model, that we've watched on whatever? Who would we want to lead us, if we want leaders, to advise us? Because some of us are too busy. There's room for politicians, because sometimes we are busy paying the bills, and we want somebody to read up on this and read up on that, and whether it's an NGO or a politician or a social media or a blogger or a reality star or a reality guest and so on and so forth. But much as I'm happy that Donald Trump is possibly the best candidate for or one of the best candidates for the transition, and I'd be perfectly comfortable, like I was going to say, running a campaign where instead of smearing everybody, we're saying like Coach say, I would consider being president, and I would be honored and humbled, and I would do my best. But I also endorse this other guy that's running, and this other guy that's running, and this other guy to run, and this other woman to run, and this other transgender to run, and this other transgender that's running. So instead of saying, don't vote for them, vote for me, say, well, yeah, you can vote for me, but I'd also vote for this one and that one and that one and that one. And find out, would Donald Trump, how would Donald Trump feel about having Parvati as an advisor? You see what I'm saying? Um, uh, but much as I'm happy that Donald Trump is one of the ideal, if not the ideal, real Earth candidate towards what I believe we're going with what I described with Model Land, which Model Land is a portal to all the other stuff that I've written that grew into Model Land. Believe it or not, those 119 cards plus the blank one are actually portals because I've thought about shit for 50 years and they converge it into Model Land cards. But I am so stoked, Coach, that it is you that I put in the center of the card as the one that Galactus is comfortable talking with. And I am so glad that it is you who is emailing me, you whom you can bounce ideas off and I can bounce ideas off. I'm so glad, Coach, that it is you who, even though you threw me off and I said, I don't know if the president thinks is the best idea, I got better ideas, and you're like, dude, I'm ready. Model and Comic Con. P.S. Model and Comic Con announcement. Wait, what's it saying? Okay, amazing, fucking amazing. P.S. Model and Comic Con announcement for president. One for all and all for one. I'm down. I mean, you can't. If it was a movie, the line could not have been written better. I'm so glad that it's you. I still hope we'll transition towards talking about model and theme parks, the desert, and we could tie that into what would you do as a president. Presidents in the past have talked about national parks. Nobody talks about national parks anymore. They are a magnificent experience. They're good for the soul. We could do measure if we use our tax money towards national parks, but we could also have a competition, private versus public. Would you put casinos and gambling and wonderful Las Vegas type of things in some of the national parks, and at the same time be able to see to it that, for example, you could have a casino in Arches National Park, but it would be built so that none of the light goes out. So inside the casino, you get all these lights. But unlike Vegas, where if you look up at the sky, you don't see the Milky Way and Arches National Park, you could have a limit of how many people can walk. You could have a theme park, you could have model and theme parks in a national park, private and or public. Do the experiment both ways. But there would not be any light. So you could get out of your hotel room. We have the technology for it. You've just been indoors, this black building that's got all the amenities and the clubs and this and that. But when you get out, it's so fucking dark. You're still in the desert, and you could have a limit of how many people can be because the experience of how many people can be in the desert. Just like you have an entry fee for a fucking thing at the House of Blues, limited capacity. You want to be able to walk in the desert and not only see the Milky Way and not having any lights, except the occasional car that comes by and all that, but that's not gonna, you know, and maybe walk for miles and miles and miles. So we want to preserve that. You get in touch with yourself. Your email was about getting in touch with yourself and not being false, and finding your true self. These are the words of sages, and they should not be, as we said. I know I'm repeating some things, but I am aware of the fact that other people might listen to this too. You know, national parks are great for finding yourself. And we might do an experiment where we put money in national parks and we might get more money back. And then instead of going like the NGOs and the public departments go, where it's like, oh, it's the end of the fiscal year, we got a million left over, we got to spend it. No, we turn it back. We say not only did we spend below budget, we saved $1 million on the budget for this year for the national parks or the schools or the military or whatever, but we made money, and we're gonna put it into the currentbank.com, or we're gonna put it into the next sport endorsed by Lay's tax, with or without wheat in the in the potato chips, or the new sport, or a new idea or something like that, or put it back in the system if we're still going through the phase where it's government and it's like another department can use it. Instead, what I've seen is that it's like if they're under budget, they go, oh, end of fiscal year, we gotta buy all this shit that we don't need. Hello, government, hello, public spending. But so you could have a test where we have model and theme parks. Go to model and cards, click on more. Actually, I have other ideas that are a lot less intimidating. That the big thing, that the card that you click through to, if you go to modelandcards.com, you go to more, and you click on model and theme parks. That's very explosive, but I also have much less intimidating and explosive things in mind for model and parks too. And of course, for that matter, in some of the drafts that I've written, it took oil stations, and we fill your tank because you use your Tyra or your Coach tip card in the mall, and you tip instead of paying, and then you get back and they put $20 of gas in your tank. Because the more you give money, the more it goes around. Like I said, it takes 0.025% of the world's wealth to see to it that 2 billion people, 2 billion working people, ideally, but 2 billion people make at least 10,000 a year. And they could take their trip to model and parks in whatever country, franchise it, or coach parks, or coach reality. I think you should do something with reality TV shows. I wouldn't be surprised, Coach, if instead of running for president, you slow down and you go, okay, I'll consider that, but I might pass the buck to Amanda from Survivor, or like I said, your friend from down the street, because you might go, you know what, Tuck, I like the idea of this mega dance club. Like if you Google mega dance club floor spins, but then again, you're a father now. I don't know if you want to get into that, but there should be a video of mine, mega club floor spins. You should be able to find a video of mine pre-tattoo. Or you might go, oh, Tuck, I got this great idea, and it's like, oh my God, thank God, Coach, I'm so glad I wrote you, because your idea is so much better than mine. Or thenewolympics.com. Or you might say, dude, you might say, Tuck, we got to do a reality show that does this and this and that. Now, if you call a press conference, or an agent, or Nintendo, or a Jeff Probst, or Universal Studios, and say, hi, I'm Coach from Survivor, or you have your agent do it, or your PR, you might want to just start thinking about getting a great PR person, and they say, yeah, we're calling on, I'm the PR director for Coach from Survivor, and if they tell him he wants to run for president with model and cards, they might laugh at you. Hopefully they won't. But if you tell him he's got an idea about a reality show, or it could be the other way around, but I think you've got some experience with reality shows still, and I'm a game inventor, so there's so much stuff that we could do. But what I do look forward to, and I know there are probably a ton of other ideas that I want to tell you, but what I do look forward to, what would bless me the most, because I sound like a megalomaniac and I want model and cards to take off, and I do care for the world, but the fact of the matter is that I love to chill with a good bud, and like I said, no pun intended, but welcome, and granted, if you were a hot mama, that'd be better. If I could relate to you the way, but guys and girls, I've given up on the idea that they can be friends. I mean, they can, but anyway, the point is, like, if I'm 80 years old, if I get to that, of course, I could get hit by a Mack truck today. Or with genetics, they could transplant my fucking brain into Natasha Vitamore's body, and I could live for 5,000 years. But let's do a standard thing, and let's say that I'm 80 years old, and I'm smoking a joint, and I'm in the desert, and I'm chilling with you, and we're like, dude, I'm so glad that we hooked up over these past 50 years, 30 years, whatever. You see what I'm saying? Regardless of whether or not any of the projects that sound grandiose ever happen. But I'd be a fool to think that precisely because of this, people might want us to take a leadership role, whether it's with the reality show, with national parks, with politics, with games, with mysticism and shamanism. I wouldn't be surprised if people did want you and or me and or the people around us to engage in things that later on down the line you go, oh wow, look at what happened with that. Something got huge. I still would love a world in which there's room for contracts and say, oh, I'll give you 5% of this, 2% of that, but it's like not only the dash karma dash bank.com, the karma bank.com, but tips, 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 where it's like you do something with Nintendo, and it's Nintendo wants to do a video game with Coach and Model and cards, and they say, okay, Tyra gets this percentage, this person gets that percentage. How much does Stook want? It's like, tip me, and vice versa. Nintendo comes to me and hey, it's okay to have fantasies, okay? They're good for you. Believe it or not, economically, from a game theory perspective, as well as a quote unquote mystic perspective. People that are evolved from the future or from other galaxies would look back and say, would be ashamed that we have to say, oh, I'm sounding so crazy. It's like, oh, it's so crazy to talk about blacks can vote. Oh, it's so crazy to talk about, women can enjoy sex. Oh, it's so crazy to talk about the earth is round and not flat. Oh, it's so crazy to talk about we don't need to make contracts. If I'm happy and I'm making money and Nintendo produced it, I just want to give them money. And then they want to give it to somebody else. So things that I'm embarrassed to say and I sound like crazy from an enlightened perspective, the fact of the matter is that we are not an evolved species. So whether or not it's just you and my friends, and hopefully I'll be able to count you among them, or eventually the whole world agrees with us, but we're not evolved. It'd be nice to evolve to an enlightened species. What I should mention, by the way, is that in this day and age, when you talk about an enlightened species, everybody talks about peace. You could still have, conflict so long as it's like the octagon or whatever, or video games, but it's like consent. Sorry, but sometimes video cuts off at 1 hour. Dude, rock and roll. Talk some more. Something else that I really wanted to say. Dude, I'm so fucking stoked you're with me, coach.